The 911 dispatcher's voice, calm, almost too calm. It was a chilling contrast to the terrified screams tearing through the phone line. Objects were flying, the family choked out. Invisible hands were pushing them, shoving them, hurting them. This wasn't some Hollywood horror flick. This was a real, desperate plea for help from a family trapped in their own Pennsylvania farmhouse. A place that should have been their safe haven had become a stage for a violent, relentless poltergeist. And believe it or not, their nightmare is far from unique in the historic rolling hills of the Keystone State. Pennsylvania. A state absolutely steeped in history, isn't it? From the birth of a nation to the brutal battlefields of the Civil War, its old stone farmhouses, scattered across the picturesque landscape, often seem to whisper tales of generations gone by, of simpler times, of hearth and home. They're icons of the American dream, a peaceful escape, a place to raise a family. But what happens when that dream sours into an unimaginable terror? Tonight, we're looking into the chilling reality of when those protective walls become the very source of your fear. We'll start with one family's harrowing ordeal in a seemingly ordinary Pennsylvania farmhouse, an account that, disturbingly, mirrors countless others across the state, where the veil between our world and something else grows terrifyingly thin. This is more than just a ghost story. For the families caught in the middle, it's a true nightmare. It was August 1973 when Jack and Janet Smurl, along with their kids, moved into a duplex on Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. Like so many folks, they were after a fresh start, a place to build their lives. The house, old as it was, seemed to promise just that, a stable home. Jack's parents would later move into the other side of the duplex. At first, it was all about settling in, making the place their own. They'd lost their previous home to flooding during Hurricane Agnes the year before, so they were eager to get to work renovating their new spot on Chase Street. Jack, a neuropsychiatric technician and a Navy vet, poured his savings into it, and for a little while, life was pretty normal. But that peace and quiet, it wasn't meant to last. The first odd signs were subtle, the kind of thing you'd easily brush off. Tools would go missing, only to turn up in the strangest places. Appliances would flicker and die for no reason. Stains would appear on carpets out of nowhere and then vanish just as mysteriously. Minor annoyances, right? Maybe just the quirks of an old house. But these were just the opening notes of a much darker tune. Slowly, the activity started to ramp up. It was around 1974 when the family first began reporting disturbances. It started, as these things often do, with noises they couldn't explain. Raps on the walls, footsteps echoing in empty hallways, sounds with no obvious source. Foul, unidentifiable smells would suddenly fill the house, hang in the air, and then just disappear. The family dog, usually fearless and full of life, started acting strangely, whining, cowering, sometimes barking furiously at things no one could see. On one terrifying occasion, the poor animal was reportedly hurled into a wall by some invisible force. These early events were deeply unsettling, planting seeds of unease and fear in the Smurl family. Janet Smurl would later say their first reaction was just confusion, a desperate scramble to find logical explanations for the increasingly bizarre happenings. They checked the plumbing, the wiring, anything that might cause such strange things. But logic didn't offer any comfort. The activity defied any simple answer, hinting at something far more sinister hiding within the walls of their home. That dream of a peaceful farmhouse was starting to crumble, replaced by a creeping dread. What exactly had they walked into on Chase Street? The strange happenings at the Smurl house didn't stick to just odd noises and smells for long. Things got more intense, more direct, more personal, and undeniably much more terrifying. The family reported their mattress would start shaking violently in the middle of the night. One of their daughters was allegedly pushed down a flight of stairs by an unseen attacker. These weren't things you could just explain away anymore. These were physical interactions, assaults from something invisible. The feeling of a malevolent presence grew stronger. Family members, including Jack's mother, Mary, started hearing voices and seeing ominous black masses, shadowy forms that would float and drift through the rooms. The temperature in certain spots in the house would suddenly plummet, creating pockets of unnatural cold. Apparitions were reportedly seen: a harmless-looking elderly woman, a suffering man, and more disturbingly, a violent young girl. The psychological toll on the Smurl family was huge. Fear became a constant. The comfort of their home was gone, replaced by this nagging feeling of being watched, of being targeted. Sleep was no escape, often shattered by terrifying experiences. The children were understandably scared out of their wits, their innocence rattled by a presence they couldn't see but could definitely feel. Jack and Janet were desperate, but their initial pleas for help were often met with disbelief or skepticism from anyone outside the family. One of the most disturbing and controversial parts of the Smurl haunting involved claims of sexual assault. Both Jack and Janet Smurl reported being physically and sexually attacked by whatever entity or entities were in their home. Janet described being lifted by an invisible presence and then thrown around. These claims, shocking and deeply personal, really underscored the invasive and violating nature of the alleged haunting. Whatever it wasn't content to just make its presence known. It seemed hell-bent on causing profound physical and psychological harm. The house on Chase Street wasn't a home anymore. It had become a prison. The Smurls felt trapped, terrorized by forces they couldn't understand, and, it seemed, couldn't escape. The dream of a peaceful Pennsylvania farmhouse had fully twisted into a waking nightmare, a relentless siege by an unseen enemy. Their desperation grew with every passing day, with every new, inexplicable, and terrifying event. They knew they needed help, but who on earth could possibly deal with such a violent, invisible foe? By 1986, the Smurl family was at its breaking point. The paranormal activity had become unbearable, the physical and psychological assaults relentless. In their desperation, they reached out to Ed and Lorraine Warren, the well-known paranormal investigators from Connecticut. The Warrens had a reputation for tackling extreme cases of alleged demonic possession and hauntings, and the Smurls hoped they could finally offer some answers, and more importantly, some relief. After investigating the house, Lorraine Warren, who described herself as a clairvoyant, claimed the Smurl home was indeed infested, not by one, but by 4 distinct entities. She identified these as a harmless elderly woman, a suffering man, a violent young girl, and most alarmingly, a powerful demon that was supposedly controlling the other 3 spirits. Ed Warren described this demon as very powerful, claiming it shook mirrors and furniture when they tried to provoke it by playing religious music and praying. He also reported feeling a significant drop in temperature and witnessing a dark mass forming inside the home. According to Ed, the demon even left a message on a mirror, telling him to get out. The Warrens documented knocking and rapping sounds, which they put down to the demonic presence. The Smurls also turned to the Roman Catholic Church for help. The Diocese of Scranton got involved, sending priests to look into the claims. Multiple house blessings were performed, but these seemed to do little, if anything, to stop the torment. Janet Smurl claimed that an unidentified priest performed 3 exorcisms, but these too were reportedly unsuccessful. Her theory was that the demon was able to dodge the rites by moving between the 2 halves of the duplex, or by simply following the family when they left the house. The church, for its part, remained cautious. Spokespeople stated they weren't sure what might be causing the disturbances. Alphonsus Trabold, a theology professor from St. Bonaventure University, suggested there might be other, less demonic explanations for what was going on. Priests who blessed the home reported seeing no harmful activity while on the property. Despite all these interventions, the Smurls insisted the activity continued. The Warrens' involvement brought national media attention to the case, turning the family's private nightmare into a very public spectacle. This publicity, however, didn't seem to scare off the alleged entities. The Smurls' story was told in a 1986 paperback called The Haunted, which was later adapted into a made-for-TV movie in 1991, further cementing their case in the annals of paranormal lore. But not everyone was convinced. Skeptics, including Professor Paul Kurtz of the State University of New York at Buffalo, who was then chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, CSI COP, offered other explanations. Kurtz didn't exactly paint the Warrens as objective, independent, or impartial investigators, and suggested the Smurls' claims were a hoax, a charade, a ghost story. He proposed that the family's experiences could be due to delusions, hallucinations, or even brain impairment, advising psychiatric and psychological evaluations. Other, more mundane explanations like faulty wiring or plumbing causing strange noises were also thrown out there. The intense period of paranormal activity, as the Smurl family reported it, stretched from 1974 all the way to 1989. After numerous attempts to get help, including blessings and exorcisms, a final church-sanctioned exorcism was reportedly performed in 1989. After this rite, the Smurls claimed that the disturbances finally stopped. They eventually moved out of the Chase Street duplex, hoping to leave the terror behind them for good. The Smurl haunting left a lasting mark, not just on the family, but on the landscape of American paranormal folklore. Their story, widely publicized, became a go-to example for discussions about demonic infestation and poltergeist activity. The book and TV movie based on their experiences brought their alleged nightmare to a huge audience, ensuring that the Smurl case would be remembered and debated for years to come. Even decades later, the Smurl haunting still captures the public imagination. It's reportedly the inspiration for the upcoming 2025 horror film, The Conjuring: Last Rites, which is expected to focus on the events of 1986 when the Warrens were heavily involved in the case. This lasting fascination really speaks to the primal fear their story evokes. The idea that your home, the one place you should feel completely safe, can be invaded by malevolent, unseen forces. Jack Smurl passed away in 2017. His daughter, Karen, has reportedly continued to investigate paranormal phenomena. She maintains that their family's story was never about chasing fame, but about surviving the unexplainable and, hopefully, helping others who might be facing similar terrifying situations. The house on Chase Street in West Pittston, it still stands. Whether it remains a hotspot for paranormal activity isn't widely reported. For the Smurls, though, the memories of what they endured there undoubtedly cast a very long shadow. Their harrowing account serves as a stark reminder of the terror that can unfold within the seemingly ordinary walls of a Pennsylvania farmhouse, a terror they insisted was all too real. While skeptics offer rational explanations, the Smurl family's consistent and detailed claims of violent poltergeist activity and demonic oppression have left a chilling legacy. Their nightmare, whether it was caused by supernatural forces or profound psychological distress, highlights the terrifying vulnerability of a family under siege in their own home. The terror the Smurl family went through in their West Pittston duplex is arguably the most infamous case of its kind in Pennsylvania, but it's certainly not the only nightmare out there. Accounts of violent entities, inexplicable happenings, and poltergeist activity echo from farmhouses, historic homes, and unassuming dwellings all across the state. Pennsylvania, with its deep colonial roots, Revolutionary War battlegrounds, and sprawling rural landscapes, seems to be surprisingly fertile ground for these chilling tales. The experiences of families confronting these unseen forces within their own walls paint a disturbing picture of a phenomenon that's both widespread and deeply unsettling. So, let's explore some of these other harrowing accounts, each one a testament to the enduring fear of the unknown that can take root right in the heart of a Pennsylvania home. Waynesburg, Pennsylvania is home to the Greene County Poor Farm, also known as an almshouse. Set up back in 1862, this place was meant to house the poor, the destitute, and in reality, often became a refuge for those with mental illnesses, kind of like a smaller-scale asylum. Over its century-long operation, more than 6,000 residents, or inmates, as they were called, passed through its doors. Its history is one of hardship, overcrowding, and, inevitably, death. The facility even faced local and national criticism for horrific living conditions, with reports of inmates being chained to walls in the basement. Records show that at least 1,000 people died there while it was open. Today, The imposing brick farmhouse serves as the Greene County Historical Society and Museum, but its past life seems to cling to its very foundations, showing up in a whole host of paranormal claims. Staff, visitors, and paranormal investigators have reported a wide range of unexplained phenomena within the former poor farm. One of the most common claims: phantom footsteps heard echoing in empty corridors and on staircases, as if the restless spirits of former residents are still walking their familiar paths. Unexplained odors are also frequently reported: the scent of old cigar or cigarette smoke wafting through rooms where no one's smoking, or the sudden sweet smell of floral perfume appearing and disappearing without a trace. Apparitions and shadowy figures are another staple of the Greene County Poor Farm's ghostly reputation. Witnesses have described seeing fleeting shapes in their peripheral vision, or more distinct figures that vanish if you look too closely. Some accounts even describe seeing figures in 19th century clothing. Small objects have reportedly been moved by unseen forces, and lights in the building have been known to turn on and off without any known cause, even in areas where electricity circuits were supposedly inactive. The sound of boxes moving around has been heard by lone staff members, and disembodied voices and moans have been reported by those who've dared to listen. Eerie feelings, sudden chills, and an overwhelming sense of not being alone are common experiences for those who walk the halls of the museum. Paranormal investigators have used various methods, including dowsing rods, to supposedly communicate with the spirits believed to reside there, getting yes or no answers to questions. Some investigations have even captured photographic anomalies, like what appeared to be two blue eyes in the basement, an area historically known as the dungeon, where remnants of hooks used to restrain inmates still remain. There are also reports of UFO-like lights being seen near the barn on the property. The history of the Greene County Poor Farm is undeniably tragic, filled with stories of suffering and despair. The early years of the building's history were reportedly at times very violent. One particularly cruel steward, William B. Cage, was known for his sadistic treatment of inmates in the late 19th century, with reports of his actions appearing in local newspapers and some inmates even disappearing from records during his time there. Whether the reported paranormal activity is a direct result of this painful past, the lingering energy of those who lived and died within its walls, or something else entirely, the Greene County Poor Farm stands as a somber testament to the idea that some locations steeped in sorrow never truly rest in peace. It's a place where the echoes of a troubled history continue to make their presence felt, reminding us that the veil between worlds can be particularly thin in places marked by profound human suffering. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The name alone conjures images of one of the bloodiest and most pivotal battles of the American Civil War. The fields and farmhouses in and around this historic town witnessed unimaginable carnage in July 1863, and many believe the echoes of that trauma still resonate today. Among the many properties scarred by the conflict, the Daniel Lady Farm holds a particularly chilling reputation. Before the battle, Daniel Lady and his family lived on this farm. But on June 26, 1863, Confederate forces rolled in and told the family they had to abandon their home so General Robert E. Lee's army could occupy the property. During the Battle of Gettysburg, the farm was transformed into a Confederate field hospital and the headquarters for Confederate General Isaac Ewell. The house and barn became sites of immense suffering, where countless wounded soldiers were brought for treatment. Amputations, surgeries, and deaths were horrifyingly common. The sheer scale of human misery concentrated in this one spot was staggering. Higher-ranked officers were treated in the house, while the barn mostly served the enlisted men. The evidence of this grim history is literally etched into the property. Bloodstains still mark the floors and walls of the farmhouse and barn, a stark reminder of the brutal procedures and dying men who once filled these spaces. Cannonball fragments have been found lodged in joists. Initials of soldiers from the battle are carved into door jambs. When the Lady family finally returned to their home after the war, they reportedly found the body of a dead Confederate soldier still lying in an upstairs bedroom. This particular room is now believed to be one of the most paranormally active areas of the house. Forensic research in more recent years, including the use of cadaver dogs, has helped locate unmarked graves of soldiers buried on the farmland. Is it any surprise, then, that the Daniel Lady Farm is renowned for its paranormal activity, often linked directly to the soldiers who suffered and died there. Apparitions of Confederate soldiers are frequently reported, seen wandering the farmland as if still on patrol, or glimpsed in windows late at night. Some paranormal investigators believe that General Isaac Ewell and his troops continue to haunt the farm, perhaps in anguish over the Confederate defeat. The sounds of war and suffering are also said to linger. Disembodied voices, sometimes speaking in Southern accents, have allegedly been heard and recorded. The cries of injured soldiers, the dragging of boots in empty corridors, and doors slamming shut on their own all add to the eerie atmosphere. Cold spots are common, particularly in the upstairs rooms where so many deaths occurred. Investigators report high levels of EMF activity. Some visitors have even described seeing figures peeking from behind trees, long after any reenactors have packed up and gone. The Daniel Lady Farm stands as a powerful and haunting memorial to the horrors of war. The intensity of the emotions, fear, pain, despair, and death experienced on this land seems to have left an indelible spiritual imprint. The stories of ghostly soldiers and unexplained phenomena serve as a constant reminder that the past is never truly gone, especially in a place so profoundly marked by human conflict. It's a chilling example of how a peaceful Pennsylvania farmhouse can become an eternal witness to history. Its darkest moments, its very structure saturated with the sorrow of those who passed through its doors on their way to the next world. Not all Pennsylvania farmhouse hauntings are tied to centuries-old histories or the traumas of war. Sometimes, the inexplicable terror finds its way into more contemporary settings, messing with the lives of ordinary families in otherwise quiet modern communities. That's the story of a farmhouse near Lake Towhee in Upper Bucks County, where a family renting the property reported a deeply unsettling series of events. The family included an uncle, aunt, 2 young cousins, Zachary, who was 14, and Lacey, a toddler around 2 years old, and the uncle's friend. They moved into this large old farmhouse. While they didn't know the exact age of the house, they figured it was around 100 years old, maybe even older. It wasn't long after they settled in, maybe only a month, that the strange things started, mostly centered around the youngest child, Lacey. Lacey started acting oddly in her crib. She'd wake up, stand, and seem to be chattering away in her toddler language to an empty wall in her room. At first, the family thought it was peculiar, but not necessarily alarming. But this went on for a few weeks and then took a terrifying turn. Lacey began screaming. Not the usual cries of a baby wanting attention, but screams of pure terror. This happened for several nights, with the little girl getting no sleep. Desperate, her parents moved Lacey into their room, where she finally slept soundly. They eventually switched her room with her older cousin Zachary's room, and Lacey never had those terrifying episodes again. Apparently, previous tenants had also reported seeing the apparition of a little girl in the house. Zachary, now sleeping in Lacey's old room, started having his own unsettling experiences. He reported hearing footsteps and creaking floorboards at night, sounds that kept him awake. His uncle initially dismissed these as just the normal sounds of an old house settling, but Zachary never got used to them. The weird experiences weren't just confined to the house itself. The property also had an old barn. The barn doors were locked and the windows were old and wouldn't budge. The kids, being curious, found a ladder leading to an unlocked door in the floor and climbed into the dusty upper level of the barn. They found their footprints in the thick dust, which told them no one had been up there for a very long time. As they explored a dark, windowless room, they saw a shadow on the wall, the distinct shadow of a dog. When they tried to find what was casting the shadow on the floor, there was nothing there. Then, the shadow dog moved, and the terrified children bolted from the barn, never to return. Adding to the mystery, a piano in the barn was found to have been played, even though the dust on its surface was untouched, except for the kids' footprints. There was also a small shed on the property that the family used for storage. The children would sometimes play in there, mainly because even on the hottest summer days, the shed stayed unnervingly cold. So cold, in fact, that they'd wear thin jackets while inside. The Bucks County farmhouse haunting, as described by the family who lived through it, is a chilling reminder that poltergeist-like activity and unexplained phenomena aren't just confined to distant history or specific infamous locations. It shows how an ordinary family, just trying to live a normal life in a rural Pennsylvania setting, can find themselves up against a series of inexplicable and frightening events. The night terrors of a toddler, the disembodied footsteps, the inexplicable cold spots, and the mysterious goings-on in the barn all paint a picture of quiet, creeping horror within the walls of what should have been a safe and peaceful home. Beyond the more widely known cases, Pennsylvania's history is sprinkled with other, sometimes lesser known, but equally chilling, accounts of farmhouse hauntings. One such story takes us back to 1928, in the small town of Lilly, Pennsylvania. Here, a family living in a farmhouse claimed to be tormented by an unseen force, a classic poltergeist scenario that escalated to a terrifying degree. According to the reports from the time, this entity would move objects around the house, create strange and unsettling sounds, and even manifest disturbing messages, scrawling them on the walls of the farmhouse. The family also reported seeing shadowy figures flitting through their home and experiencing intense, localized cold spots, a phenomenon often linked with paranormal activity. As things got worse, it started to draw the attention of local authorities and paranormal investigators of that era. People tried to understand and maybe put a stop to the disturbances that were plaguing the family. However, despite these investigations, no clear rational explanation for the relentless activity was ever found. The source of the poltergeist, its motives, if it even had any, remained completely shrouded in mystery. Unable to cope with the constant and unsettling torment, the family ultimately made the tough decision to abandon their home. They fled the farmhouse, leaving behind the source of their fear, a place that had once represented security but had transformed into a zone of inexplicable terror. The Lilly haunting, though perhaps not as famous as the Smurl case, still stands as an enigmatic and unsettling piece of Pennsylvania's paranormal tapestry. It serves as another example of an ordinary family whose lives were thrown into chaos by forces they could neither understand nor control. The classic poltergeist calling cards, moving objects, strange sounds, written messages, shadowy figures, and cold spots were all there, painting a vivid picture of a household under siege. The fact that the activity was so intense it drew the attention of authorities and investigators, and ultimately drove the family from their home, really speaks to how severe their ordeal must have been. The unexplained mystery of the Lilly farmhouse poltergeist continues to linger, a chilling testament to the terrifying power of the unseen and the profound impact such encounters can have on those who experience them. So the accounts we've looked at tonight, from the demonic claims of the Smurl family in West Pittston to the sorrow-soaked history of the Greene County Poor Farm, the battle-scarred Daniel Lady Farm in Gettysburg, the unsettling suburban experiences in Bucks County, and the historic poltergeist activity in Lilly, they all paint a chilling and pretty consistent picture, don't they? These aren't just isolated incidents. They seem to be part of a broader, deeply unsettling tapestry of paranormal claims woven throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Farmhouses, often seen as these bastions of peace and family warmth, can, it seems, become epicenters of profound fear and inexplicable phenomena. You start to see common threads running through these harrowing stories. The reported activity often kicks off subtly. Strange noises, objects moving just a bit, a general feeling of unease, before escalating to more direct and terrifying experiences. Physical sensations, from cold spots to being touched or pushed, are reported again and again. Apparitions, whether they're shadowy figures or more distinct forms, often show up. And perhaps most disturbingly, the impact on the families involved is consistently devastating. Confusion turns into fear, and fear turns into a desperate search for answers and relief. The very sanctuary of home is violated, leaving people feeling vulnerable, besieged, and often completely disbelieved by the outside world. The deep history of Pennsylvania itself seems to play a role here. Think about it. Ancient Native American lands and burial grounds, the violent clashes of colonial times, the Revolutionary War, and the Civil War. The soil of Pennsylvania is steeped in human drama, conflict, and tragedy. Places like the Daniel Lady Farm are direct links to this violent past. where the echoes of suffering seem to cling to the land and buildings. Locations like the Greene County Poor Farm, which held decades of human misery and hardship, also appear to retain a palpable sense of their sorrowful histories. But not all hauntings are tied to such big historical narratives. The Bucks County Farmhouse and the Lily Poltergeist case remind us that terror can take root in seemingly ordinary places, disrupting ordinary lives without any obvious historical reason. This really speaks to the unsettling randomness, the sheer unpredictability of these alleged phenomena. Why one family in one particular house becomes the focus of such activity often remains an unanswerable, terrifying question. These true nightmare accounts from across Pennsylvania force us to confront the limits of our own understanding. They challenge our perceptions of reality and tap into a primal fear, the fear of the unknown, the unseen, the malevolent force that can invade our safest spaces. Whether these experiences are truly supernatural in origin, the result of complex psychological factors, or just misinterpretations of everyday events, the terror experienced by these families is undeniably real to them. Their stories serve as a chilling reminder that within the historic farmhouses and quiet homesteads of Pennsylvania, and indeed beyond, the line between the ordinary and the terrifyingly inexplicable can be frighteningly thin. The dream of a peaceful home can, for some, become a family's true nightmare. The stories you've heard tonight are just a small glimpse into the unsettling accounts that have emerged from the historic landscapes of Pennsylvania. So many more are out there, whispered in local lore, or held tightly by families who've been through the unimaginable. Do you have your own Pennsylvania paranormal experience to share? Have you encountered something you just can't explain within the walls of an old farmhouse, or felt an undeniable presence in a place with a storied past? Share your stories and thoughts in the comments below. We'd genuinely love to hear from you. And if you found this look into Pennsylvania's poltergeist phenomena compelling, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more explorations of true hauntings and unsolved mysteries. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next trip into the shadows. The peaceful look of Pennsylvania's farmhouses can, for some, hide a truly terrifying reality. As we've seen, these homes, meant to be sanctuaries, have for too many families become unwilling stages for encounters with the inexplicable and the malevolent. From violent poltergeist activity to the lingering spirits of tragic pasts, these accounts serve as a stark reminder that not all old houses rest quietly. The true nightmare for these families wasn't just the fear itself, but the complete shattering of their peace, the invasion of their most personal spaces by forces utterly beyond their comprehension. The history of Pennsylvania is rich and deep, and it seems that some of its oldest residents, the unseen ones, are unwilling to let us forget the stories, and sometimes the terrors that lie buried beneath the soil and embedded within the very stones of these old structures. Sleep well, if you can.